Hello and welcome to Different Leaf, a show for new and experienced cannabis consumers. I'm Brit Smith. We're capping off our winter 2023 podcast season with another bonus edition of the Queer Cannabis Club, where we highlight another incredibly cool LGBTQ-led company in the cannabis space. This episode, we're going to talk to Ben Tousley and Mac Malikowski, the founders of Buds Digest, a delicious digital magazine out of New York City that's made by and for gay stoners. Buds Digest is so very cool in so many ways, from the tongue-in-cheek, sports-esque aesthetic of the magazine itself to the smoke session kikis with some of NYC's coolest gay potheads, like Bowen Yang, John Early, Sam J, and Amy Sedaris. Mac and Ben have just dropped the 7th issue of Buds Digest. You can take a look at budsdigest.com. And they've got King Princess, Angel Olson, and good friend of Different Leaf, Laganja Estranga. This episode, we're going to be chatting about how they came together and envisioned Buds Digest, how gay culture influences the content and the feel of their magazine, and how they get such cool queer stoners to spark up and open up. We'll be right back with Mac and Ben of Buds Digest. Mac and Ben, thank you guys so much for joining us today. This magazine caught our eye. It's a cannabis and culture magazine for queer stoners. Similarly to Different Leaf, we focus on cannabis and culture, and Different Leaf is part of the Queer Cannabis Club as well, which is a consortium of cannabis companies that focuses on the LGBTQ community. So this episode is going to be another in our line of the Queer Cannabis Club episodes, where we want to get to know more queer leaders in the cannabis space. So can you guys tell me a bit about your backgrounds? Just from looking at your magazine, I had this weird feeling that you were both like super creative stoners. Is that where this comes from?
That's, I think, accurate.
Yeah, very flattering assessment. Thank you, Brett. Well, Ben and I have been friends for a long time. We've been great buds, as maybe you guessed. And I personally have been working in independent editorial publishing and small events here in New York City for myself and other small collaborators. And near the end of my last small magazine I hooked up with Ben, who really helped me realize projects we were working on at the time. And from then on, we just started talking about Buds Digest. We just couldn't get out of our heads.
Ben, what was your background?
The background I have about 17 years of doing design for like a lot of music projects for the most part. Mm-hmm. I'm a graphic designer, and I've worked at different studios on different things like some branding and books, but for the most part, I've worked on music projects, like album covers for most of that time. So I would say that definitely lends itself to some good stoner, creative, fun tasks and stuff. So that's my background as well. And I've had an interest in editorial stuff since I was in high school. And actually kind of how I got into graphic design stuff was through journalism and visual communication. So I think, yeah, both of our interests have intersected there and wanted to make something new together.
So where are you guys located now? You're on the East Coast?
Yeah, we both live in Brooklyn, New York, and hang in the kind of same circles and have a lot of the same references. We both like tons of the same comedy, tons of the same music, and always knows music I want to listen to and get into. And I think vice versa often. We've seen concerts together, we've traveled together, and yeah, we share a lot of references. And I think that helps us with these, to us, really cutting edge editorial projects that we work on.
So let's talk a little bit about the magazine's aesthetic, which is just the most powerful part of this. When you first look at the cover, is just like, damn, that photography is cool. I asked a couple of friends to look it over and I was like, what kind of words would you guys use to describe Buds Digest? And this is the list that I got back. I got the words bold, raw, dreamy, juicy, moody, and queer. And I think that's a beautiful wrap up of exactly what you guys are doing.
It's an accomplished.
Yeah. So tell me about your influences. What inspires you when it comes to the aesthetic of the magazine?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. We started thinking about this in 2018 and 2019-ish before we launched in 2020 with like our first, like our logo and everything. And I think at that time, it's interesting to think about how maybe even cannabis, especially in New York and stuff, has obviously changed its presence quite quickly. But I think at that time, it felt like there were a lot of people doing like kind of luxury points of view into cannabis marketing and stuff, like trying to elevate it from outside of the typical like stoner look and feel. And I think I was more interested somewhere in between there where it's like, yeah, elevated out of it, but also like, it's got to be fun. Like it can't be, I mean, it can be a luxury product for people, but I don't think to us it is necessarily that. It's kind of like a fun, silly, surreal, creative escape.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wanted to capture that and have like, I think the name Buds was so great. Bud Stages, we came up with it together. And then I think, yeah, it lended itself to kind of like, I don't know, it has like a kind of a Letterman jacket or like a kind of like a sports team feel to it or something at first. And then trying to bring in queerness and fresh photography. I have to say, I feel like my biggest pleasure with all of this is getting to work and collaborate with so many different photographers that bring fresh perspectives and young people doing cool things. So bringing that in with a reserved, more straight approach to the design and letting the photography do the talking kind of been, I think, a really nice sweet spot for us. I wanted to appear at first kind of like straight, bold, like you're saying, kind of like grab your attention. And then, as we progress, we want to have little moments where it's a little surreal and like, oh, what's happening here? Like, what are they doing at this moment? And that's kind of like what being stoned is like, I think. I want to look at it and be like, did they really?
A little turned around.
Yeah, a little turned around at times.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what I got from it. It's like, if I read this stoned, I feel like I'm almost in those pictures. Like it draws you in so much. There's so much depth and so much color to it. And it's just like, I feel like I could be laying next to them smoking alongside them, but that it's also really beautifully framed. Like you said, sort of like a sports-esque looking, really old school, cool font magazine. And I love that intersection of those two.
No, thank you so much. That's just so flattering. Thank you.
So what kind of photographers and artists have you been working with, and where does your inspiration come from when you're picking people that work with you?
Yeah, when we're picking people, there's no real test. It's like, first of all, we're based in this community in New York of queer people, so many amazing talents everywhere. And you have to cross all these different wires with scheduling and who's interested in what and stuff. And so there's all sorts of different routes to get there. We started off with an incredible photographer who worked on the last project that Mac mentioned, Christopher Sherman, who's a photographer out of Toronto that we love, and Jason Rogers, who's somebody that we've worked closely with. And they helped us develop a lot of these early first issues in look and feel. And then the family of people who's contributed has really grown a lot. And yeah, I don't know, I just keep an eye out on it. And
definitely people we've been fans of before the magazine, just have been so good at cataloging people along the way and putting them in our Rolodex to circle back with when a cool project comes up. And it's definitely something we've worked on or we've done on the last couple issues, starting with the talent, getting close to some of these people, everyone from Amy Sedaris to Bowen Yang, and then kind of working the photography around the talent is really, really cool and super exciting for both the photographer and us, and I think the talent too.
Totally.
It makes for some super interesting stories as well, but I want to circle back to those folks. How do you get such cool people to get high and talk to you? You mentioned you've had like Bowen Yang and Amy Sedaris. There's also like Joel Kim Booster, Kate Berlant, who is one of my secret crushes, not so secret anymore, I suppose. But how do you get them to sit down and chat with you? And how do you even know that they're stoners?
I got to say, that's the biggest surprise. I think every single time we do one of these issues, it's like, I'm constantly surprised that people say yes to it. We go out there, I think, because we look at it in terms of like, if we're the audience and our friends are like the audience or queer stoners or, that's a very wide category of people, but who would we gag over basically is how we, I think, start to reach out to people. And then, that's been an interesting path for me personally. That's all new to me, like reaching out to PR people, trying to schedule, produce stuff and gauge how to figure out how somebody wants to do it. It's not particularly interesting to talk about, but it's been an experience. And it's also been kind of like very encouraging, I think, because it's just made me realize like, oh, like if you want to do something, you can just give it a go.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, there's something, I think it speaks to the concept of the magazine and maybe this like unspoken for group in gay culture that feels like that all these people are saying yes to being a part of it pretty much automatically in our first year and stuff feels like it's just a testament to the corner that we're trying to outline.
Yeah, definitely. We've tapped into something, I think. And like Ben said, in 2020, we started with a series we call Trip Advisors, which is also available on our website. It's just a series of playlists that are meant to be stoner playlists or whatever, get stoned, listen to music playlist. And for that, we've had contributors everyone from JD Sampson to Roddy Bottom from Faith No More. We have over 100 playlists now. We had Andy Butler from Hercules and Love Affair. And that's another one that's easy to like. Everyone has music they like to get stoned to, it seems like. And so just putting that out there to people is so titillating, I think. I mean, both for us too. I mean, we're constantly, we said, sharing music references. And I think people want to share their music references too. So I think it made us realize early on with that playlist series that we're definitely tapping into something with buds. Everyone's got a bud they like to smoke with. Everyone loves their favorite buds. They like to grind up and roll up. And yeah, it's been, like Ben said, very encouraging. And even some of these people that we worked with, some big talents have come to us. They said, hey, I'd love to talk about smoking in your magazine. Where do I sign up? So yeah, it's been very, very cool that way.
That's cool. So who's your favorite playlist so far? I know that there's like more than 100 to choose from, but do you guys have a favorite?
My number one, which is Sylvia Prada.
Sylvia Prada.
Yeah, they're an artist, collage artist too.
And a pencil illustrator, really, really does some work.
And we launched this particular one that is just so dialed and so good. I listen to it all the time.
I'll have to give that a listen when I smoke next.
Yeah, it's house music.
Nice. Okay, so that's for some sativa. That's for when you're really feeling it. Okay,
it's a slow take.
Oh, it's a takeoff for sure. Yeah,
I like it. Sounds like a really well curated list.
I mean, they all are incredible.
Yeah.
What other parts of gay culture have you taken inspiration from, aside from sort of the photography, the music, those sorts of things? How else is it involving in the stories that you're telling?
Interesting. I mean,
definitely comedy. That's a huge pillar of ours for sure. Like I said, both Ben and I have very similar comedy references. We're huge fans of Cape Land, John Early, of course, Bowen Yang, but also going all the way back to, more local talent that we find super funny. Clay Woman was in our first issue, and that's Michael Cavadias. He's a really, really cool actor in New York for a long time. And another really trippy story we did with him, we had Michael Cavadias interview himself in drag. Wow. One of these like turned around moments too. We like lightheartedness, we like comedy. And I think gay people, of course, take comedy in such a profound way. I think it's like how we're forced to or something, I think you have to find humor all around you or else.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a huge inspiration for us.
Yeah. And also I think just the double entendre of the name, but is the big thing that gives it legs to me is the community aspect and us trying to talk to not just one person, but their friend, people together. And I mean, I think community and friendship is, also vital for gay and queer existence.
Mm-hmm.
There's something kind of interesting about a point of view of a magazine that tries to focus on what's in between the two people rather than just the one person.
I want to ask specifically about one of the guests that I saw focused on in your Instagram stories, who I've also interviewed for another project. It's Claiborne Elder, and he is not only an incredible actor, he's a gay dad. Was it difficult to get parents to agree to talk to you about their smoking habits?
That's an interesting one because that one happened through the photographer, Mike Cooper. But from what I understand, he was totally down. I mean, he even took his pants off for the photo.
And I live a joint, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, there, every once in a while, very, very few talents that we've worked with are like, hey, I'd love to do the interview. Probably won't be talking about weed. Probably won't be smoking on camera. But eventually we end up actually getting them to do that a little bit anyway. So I think it's people do come in with like certain expectations of what they want to do because of, their perceived idea that they, I don't know, it might do something to their career if they're like associate too much with smoking, but
they don't want to sell something. Like we had one talent say that, and I remember that just kind of, she was like, I'm here to talk about my work. I'm not here to sell like cannabis to people. And that hit me so hard. I was like, that's awesome. I respect that so much. And I think very early on in the process, we realized that like we need to tell people that it's not required, to not scare them away to talk about it, because we believe that them just being in this will be exciting for a queer stoner audience, even if they're talking about their creative work and all this other beautiful things that they do without having to talk about stoner stuff all the time. So as you'll probably notice, you know, I haven't tried to be forward with it in the photography or anything. It's there. It's like a glue that binds things kind of quietly in the background, but it's not required. It's not something we're also trying to push either. I don't think it's like, it's just this kind of special, cute thing that gives us an excuse to make a magazine.
And Claymore and Elder specifically appears in part of the section that's, we have a full feature section that are these more long form conversations between two people. We also have a section in the magazine called Edible Moments. Just kind of like a 90s teen beat style, like short answer question. And we're asking them silly things like boxers or briefs, but we're also asking if they like sativa or if they like indica, you know, silly moments like that. And I think someone like Claiborne, I think, jumped right into that sort of sassy little interview style and took his hands up and was okay, like smoking and everything. You know, we have a few different places for people who want to be a part of the magazine. Maybe they don't want to be smoking on camera. Maybe they want to do a playlist instead. So I think we've definitely found a good balance with smokers and non-smokers alike, for sure.
Yeah, it's really beautifully put together, and every story is very interesting. You know, the kinds of discussions and where those conversations go ends up being really revealing about folks. And I think that that's really nice because you can find common ground with other smokers. Oftentimes there's another layer of that community where I think once you sit down and smoke with somebody, they really open up. Do you often find that when people sit down and they're unintentional about the smoking, but they're like, okay, I'll end up having a little smoke, is that when they really open up with their interviews?
That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think?
Could be. There's so many different examples of it. But yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. I think there's something about agreeing to being associated with it at all that you're kind of like revealing a little bit of personal life if you're not already blasting that you're smoking all the time. So maybe there is, but there's already innately something intimate about it.
Definitely people like to just talk about what they're on in the interview, you know, or like what they should be on. So I think Bowen and Joel is a great example. They like, first thing they did when they sat down, they're like, are you smoking right now? And he's like, I can. And he's like, do you have Saturday Night Live this week? He's like, no, I'm off this week.
Right.
So I think, you know, I think people get excited. So they both popped some gummies. So I think halfway through the conversation got a little loopy.
Yeah. John and Kate, they were in a car, they were not high. They were going to the photo shoot and they were having such a cute moment. They were like, oh my God, we should get high after this.
Yeah.
They were having this really sweet, totally surprisingly revealing kind of conversation, I think. But that also could come just from a lot of times people talking with their friends too, you know?
Yeah.
We've been really lucky with our conversations that we've had. And most of the interviews are done by us, if it's like by the Buds editor team. But otherwise, I think there's something about people together with their friends that make people comfortable.
Yeah, definitely does. So let's talk about the future of Buds. You guys have only been around for a few years, but there is so much potential to this magazine. I cannot wait to see the next issue. Do you have any sneak peek for us for, I think it's issue 8 about to come out?
Yeah, so we are trying something new right now where we launched the beginning of issue 7 with Angel Olson, and then we'll follow up, fill that issue out in February, and we can reveal that King Princess will be like a big feature in that with some incredible photography by Daniel Cavanaugh.
Cool.
Very excited about that.
Definitely have, you know, some more local stories coming out of Brooklyn too, especially as cannabis starts like ramping up here. I mean, we just now opened our, you know, not me, New York City is, but a dispensary in the city by Housing Works Projects, which is a really cool operation. There's cannabis available all over the city constantly now. Of course, it's in the air. So definitely want to be covering the local stories. There's these cool place out in Brooklyn called Till Death that's doing really interesting stuff. You'll have to read more about it. A lot of stuff. And again, it does feel like a boundless or limitless theme, you know, like talking about music, comedy, and friendship through this lens of cannabis. It just keeps exciting people, including us, you know?
Totally. I'll say another thing that we're excited to do is, and hopefully this will be the year for it, we've talked about it for a while, is to get into the streets and get people together and actually get like the audience. I mean, like we've been able to establish kind of like a rhythm and a point of view for the online magazine, but I think next, it would be way more fun to actually see queer stoners together, like in a room and have a party and different events. And we're also thinking about, we are going to try and have a Discord launch. So we have like a place where people can go and talk and maybe some live Q&As and stuff.
Live events would be so, so fun. I love going to live events. I think it's where you make those really natural connections with people, especially if you can sit and smoke together. It's just like another way of bonding and opening up with somebody. I saw that you did an event. It was a few years ago, and then obviously the pandemic sort of kicked in. Do you have any plans for any future events coming up?
Yeah, that was a cool concept we would love to revisit. The idea is to have a musician on our network come and DJ party. And then we take a drag queen from our network and come, and they lip sync one of those songs. We do it with a plate of munchies, and we get, maybe some people smoking in the back. But generally, yeah, we'd love to do like an issue release party. We really haven't done something like that where we're simultaneously doing something live when the issue comes out, kind of really celebrating it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, again, limitless. I'd love to do like a really, really food focused, like big munchie party where we get people stoned and eating tons of food. And
in comedy, we'll see, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but we have so many amazing comedians and stuff that have been in this, and what more fun of an event than a comedy show. Well, so we'll see.
That sounds great. Well, we will be in New York City for the LMCC, the Luxury Meets Cannabis Conference. So Different Leaf and Buds, hopefully we'll be able to cross paths and we'll be able to meet in person.
Please, though.
How can folks find you guys? Is it strictly digital at the moment?
It is. Yeah. We kind of strive to give it away for free and keep costs down. And I think I come from a print background. I would love to have it be a print magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Once we got launched and we started going, it was like, well, let's just put it out for free online. And I think we'll keep trying to do that. Hopefully there would be, again, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but maybe some sort of print compendium book at some point would be nice.
That would be cool. If you ever put it in print, it will stay on my coffee table. It's so cool. Like the photos, the interview, it's so cool. It's so interesting. And we're really excited to see what you guys come out with in the future. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And hopefully we'll get to hang out and eat lots of munchies together sometime soon.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Brit.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to our Queer Cannabis Club guests this week, Mac and Ben from Buds Digest magazine. After you've checked out all their juicy issues at budsdigest.com, make sure to order yourself the upcoming issue of Different Leaf, our spring issue, which drops mid-April, and in there you can find a Q&A with Mac and Ben. That's it for our winter season. Another big thanks to all of our wonderful guests. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to kick off spring with an insane 420 episode that you won't want to miss. We're going to have two very special guests, former Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commissioner and founder of the Parabola Center for Law and Policy, Shalene Title, who will be guest hosting an incredible interview with Ben Cohen, co-founder of Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream and CEO of Ben's Best Blends. Ben Cohen has recently launched a new nonprofit in Vermont that works with local independent craft cannabis growers to help fund cannabis businesses that are owned by people of color and nonprofits that work for criminal justice reform. Shalene Title and Ben Cohen, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast wherever you're listening right now so you don't miss that one. And follow us on social media at Different Leaf so you don't miss our podcast, magazine, and merch drops. That's at Different Leaf, and I'm on social media at Brit the British. You can buy any and all issues of Different Leaf, the magazine, at differentleaf.com, and they're available on thousands of shelves across the US and Canada at select Barnes & Noble bookstores, Walmarts, CVS pharmacies, and at select cannabis dispensaries. Find your local retailer or order yourself copies at differentleaf.com. And we'll see you just in time for 420.